Okay, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. You guys ready to get into more advanced collecting strategies, the stuff that unsophisticated investors and speculators aren't aware of? That's what we're going to start going into in some of these videos, okay? I also want to say I thank you for viewing this video. I thank you for your comments, feedback, and likes, unlikes, and even subscribing to the channel. When I put together this channel, I wanted to do it with no promotional influence, meaning, as some of you are aware, I do write for Antiques and Auction News. I did not put any column out or any type of promo out that I was going to be starting a YouTube channel. That's why also, as some of you have found out, that's why I don't use my real name. I use Reserved Investments, which is a business that I own, rather than my actual given name to promote the channel. I didn't want any influence of that nature. So this is kind of an experiment to see how many people actually will take the time to view a YouTube channel that has very little views or subscriptions and actually give it a chance to grow. And that's something that I want to see what happens in the long game as I continue to release more and more videos. Some of the feedback I did get before I start here, a lot of my videos some people think are too long. The problem with me shortening them is I could do that, but I'm leaving out a lot of important data that I think can help you guys. I do notice that there is a substantial amount of views where people just watch for like 10 minutes and then I seem to lose their attention and they switch off. That's probably why most other YouTube videos on collectibles and antiques are pretty much 10 minutes long or less, because I hate to say this, but the attention span of the average viewer is just not 20, 30 minutes. And unfortunately, a lot of the advanced strategies, when I start to talk about them, I'm going to actually have to do multiple videos where I break it up, especially with what we're going into here. But at the same time, this is very vital information. If you understand the information that I'm going to be releasing in these videos, especially today's, you will be, I can tell you, you will be 70 to 80% ahead of most collectors, speculators, and unsophisticated investors out there. You will be well on your way to becoming a more knowledgeable collector, okay? So, we're going to start off with a little introduction here. There's somebody else who is involved in the antiques and collectibles trade as a commenter, as an appraiser, as somebody who's well respected that you may have heard of, who also has been an influence on my work, okay? The gentleman's name, and if you haven't heard of him, please Google his name. He even has a website. And again, he doesn't know I'm making this video. I've had obviously conversations with him. I know him very well in regards to the trade. Don't know him personally, but we've interacted through emails and such. That said, his name is Harry Rinker, okay? You can find his columns at www.harryrinker.com, okay? I will put that in the description of this video in case you need to know how to spell that. It spells exactly like it sounds, Harry Rinker. That said, he created a lot of, how do I want to say this, either rules or theories based on the antiques and collectibles trade. And some of these rules and theories have been controversial, especially in the mass-produced, speculative, mania, hype-driven, modern era of the collectibles trade, specifically, okay? That said, back in 2012, this would have been a year before I started writing for Antiques and Auction News. As a matter of fact, this is really one of the, how do I want to say this? One of the things I was known for was writing Harry Rinker in this regard. He actually published two of my letters. I'm going to share one of them with you in his column. And it kind of got my name out there a little bit, where people said, oh, this Sean guy seems to be in tune to something. I wonder what his perspective on the market is. And that led me to write guides on eBay. And eventually those guides, the writing that I did for those guides on eBay, led me to my current gig, which is a freelance writer, which also led me to write for Antiques and Auction News. So if you're wondering how I got started, it was knowledge, 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 then writing, then I was able to parlay that into more of a freelance career, okay? So, back in, and if you go to his website, you can actually look at this letter. It's column number 1328. If you go to his website and you look archived articles by Harry Rinker, you should be able to find column 1328. It's called The Rule of 25, okay? This is what I wrote him, and I'm just going to paraphrase. This is what he says. A June 25th, 2012 email from Sean Cermick read, My question centers around a supposed rule of 25. It states that an item that is popular now will be worth more money and sought after in about 25 years when collectors who have grown up with these items wish to collect and own them again. This basically applies to toys and pop culture based collectibles. This rule shows up on toy and comic book forums a lot, but I cannot find anything else about it, Harry. I would appreciate your thoughts on the subject because I doubt the validity of this rule. And again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm also using, if you're wondering why I read that a little bit different than what it's worded, I actually have a copy of the draft of the email that I sent to Harry. He had to paraphrase it due to how many words were in it. So I just added that to give it more, how do I want to say this, a definition of what I actually wrote originally. So, Harry Rinker responds, and I'm not going to read all of this, but I am going to read the main point because that's what we're going to be talking about. Approximately 20 years ago, I wrote the first of many columns in which I discussed Rinker's, this is Harry Rinker speaking, Rinker's 30-year rule. For the first 30 years of anything's life, all its value is speculative. Let me read that to you guys again because that's what we're going to be discussing today. Rinker's 30-year rule states, for the first 30 years of anything's life, all its value is speculative. Initially, I developed the rule to explain the pricing phenomenon involved with limited and collector edition collectibles. As the years progressed, I found the rule applied to objects in most new collecting categories, as well as applies to items accumulated by spouses, children, and grandchildren. Rinker's 30-year rule focuses solely on intermediate value. It does not imply, nor was it ever meant to suggest, that in 30 years, everything would become collectible. Let me read that again. It does not imply, nor was it ever meant to suggest, that in 30 years, everything would become collectible. It was postulated as a control and counter to the 1980s limited collector edition literature that suggested that not only would every product become collectible over time, but that it would also increase significantly in value. Now I'm going to go on with this letter. The limited edition market speculative bubble burst in the early 1990s prior to the advent of eBay. The death nail rung long before eBay was flooded with product. There is no song entitled Pennies on the Dollar, a matter of some surprise given the many themes explored by country music. The title would apply to a song written about the secondary market value of limited edition collector's items. As much as I want to believe there is a collector for everything, there is not. Objects and object groups become lost over time. Survival is not a sufficient justification for collecting. Good taste and common sense often prevail. Now he does go on, and I want to read you one more paragraph. I'm sorry if this is boring to you guys, but it's very important. In fairness to the proponents of the rule of 25, I acknowledge that they are arguing in favor of popular and not all objects. On the surface, their argument makes sense. First, collecting is memory-driven. Collectors buy back their childhood, beginning with toys and then moving on to clothing, movies, music, television, and other pop culture items. Second, the rule of 25 proponents are short-term thinkers rather than long-term focused. They accept the concept of one-generation collectability. You guys should know what that means if you watch my videos. Their connection is an aging generation who grew up and played with the material. What that generation's grandchildren and great-grandchildren will collect is irrelevant. Rinker on Collectibles readers, meaning the article that he writes, his readers, are familiar with my one-generation collectibles concept. What is going to happen to the value of an object when the generation who grew up with it, who remembers it, dies? When I first posed this question in the late 1980s, collectibles dealers rose in protest. Over 20 years later, few question it. I cite my favorite cowboy hero, Hopalong Cassidy, as an example. For those of you that watched my other video, I did bring up Western collectibles and how in the 80s they were at their peak because the generations of the 50s and the 60s who grew up wanting and watching like toys and pop culture items based on Western collectibles, in the 80s they were 20 years older, so they bought back all that stuff. Today you go to any auction, even a toy auction, and you compare the prices gotten for most Western collectibles, and you compare it to the prices in the 80s, we're talking 70% decline. It's insane. Nobody's buying stuff based on the Lone Ranger, Gunsmoke, Hopalong Cassidy, Billy Kid, Sundance Kid, whatever. Anything you want to put in there, okay? It's a dying hobby, okay? That's what I mean when I tell you guys, if you guys want to collect for future generations out, you got to look at historic items. Stuff like historic documents, coins, currency, artwork, stuff that has lasting appeal, okay? As much as people want to argue with me, and I've said this before, in 500 years from now, I really don't think anybody is going to covet an Action Comics issue 1 or a Detective Comics number 27. For those of you that aren't aware, Action Comics 1 brought forth Superman, Detective Comics 27 brought forth Batman. I'm sorry, 500 years from now, I do not see those items being relevant to pop culture collecting in that time frame, okay? So, I wanted to create a video on this because I also want to hear your comments if this video gets more than 5 views, okay? I am a huge proponent of Rinker's 30-year rule here, okay? I do not believe in the rule of 25 at all. I think it is an unsophisticated investor and speculator who sits there and tries to fathom, and if you read this article, I'm going to read you another paragraph in a minute, you'll find out most people who believe that, 25, 30 years from now, the stuff that is coming onto the market now is going to be collectible, don't do their research. Because by that logic, you guys should all be collecting Beanie Babies by now. You're not. They came out in the 90s. And you can argue with me all you want that that was a speculative craze, but a lot of people back at that time frame coveted those items. They were very popular. So it would make sense, now that we're 20, 30 years out, those items should start to be coming back in vogue again. They're not. Matter of fact, you can go to a flea market, a yard sale on any given Saturday or Sunday, and you can find them for like $1, some are a quarter, some are 50 cents. That's not to say there are not a few that are still valuable, but the chances of a revival in that market is just not probable, okay? And I want to address that because I'm seeing videos on YouTube, Beanie Babies are coming back, and the video gets 1,000 views. I'm putting the truth out here to you guys. This video will get 5 to 10 views, and it'll be watched by some dude who's not even listening to what I'm saying on top of that, okay? I just want to put this out there to open your mind to other information, factual information. So I'm going to go on in this letter because I do want to read at least a couple more paragraphs in this letter, okay? So this is Harry Rinker now. While the rule of 25 appears valid on the surface, it is badly flawed. First, trendiness is the prevailing theme in today's marketplace. Few styles last a decade. Many fads and crazes are gone within a year or two. How long did the Beanie Baby craze last? While memory may suggest more than a decade, the answer is approximately 7 years. It takes longer than a decade to establish long-term collectability, especially for toys. Ideally, a toy should remain popular and in production for 10 to 15 years, long enough to impact 2 juvenile generations to be collectible. Funko Pop collectors, you should be worried when I read that, okay? If the object is popular among young adults, it needs to be linked to a use and/or decorating craze that lasts 15 to 20 years. A virtual impossibility in an age when Crate and Barrel and Pottery Barn change their decorating schemes every 6 months. Okay. Another thing that Harry Rinker goes on to say in this is rule of 25 proponents have not done market research, and I have been saying this in every single video I produce. Speculators only look at, how do I want to say this, their wins. They don't look at their losses. They don't look at their failures. Every speculator out there that I talk to operating in the vintage toy market tells me that the 80s, every toy line that came out is more valuable today than when it was in the 1980s. That is completely false. If you don't believe me, I can name toy lines right now to you that literally went bust to the point, even if you come up with a factory sealed example, you're not going to sell it at a premium. Don't believe me? Look up Guts. I don't know if you remember, they were little plastic army men that was put out. I think Mattel made them, I want to say. Barnyard Commandos, another great example. Unless they're factory sealed, you're not getting a premium for them. Nobody cares. I think Food Fighters was another line, where if they're factory sealed, you might get 25 bucks for one. Once you factor in the cost of inflation, though, it basically comes out to what the item was worth back in 1980s when it was released. Okay? So, it's very important you guys understand this, because I'm going to read another paragraph here. Hold on. Fourth, rule of 25 proponents have not done market research. When subtracting 25 from 2012, this article, this email that I sent him was dated from 2012. The answer is 1987. When visiting a flea market or antiques mall, look for objects made in 1987. Some of the top toys of that year were Cabbage Patch Dolls, Puffalump Bears, and Mattel's Captain Power, along with Muppet Babies, Happy Meal toys, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers. Now, out of those categories that I just mentioned, the only two that have a relative following are the Ninja Turtles and the Transformers. I'm sorry, I can tell you firsthand, very few people are collecting Captain Power. Nobody wants Muppet Babies items, and Cabbage Patch Dolls were a dying craze after they came out in the 80s, okay? The market was oversaturated, okay? So he's absolutely right in this analysis, okay? So if you're going by the hottest toys, you open up a copy of, I don't know, even the Wall Street Journal sometimes lists the most popular toys coming on the market every year. And you went and you bought all those items and you speculated in them for the long term. If you were to wait 25 years, guarantee you would lose money if you flip them back onto the market. That's what rule of 25 proponents get wrong. This is what also led me off the CGC collecting forums and a lot of toy collecting forums. Because I used to argue with people who used to have this mentality that they could walk into a Target, a Walmart, or Toys R Us when they were around, fill up their cart with toys, wait, 20, 30 years, and sell it back into the market at a massive premium, and all their money problems would be solved. It is stupid thinking, okay? In summary, the rule of 25 is a pipe dream, a fantastic notion of vain hope. For every case in which it applies, there are hundreds where it does not. The rule of 25 is what drove millions to invest in Beanie Babies. It remains the dream deftly hidden in the advertising literature of the collector edition manufacturers and is blatantly touted by the hosts of cable channel home shopping networks. Okay? If you want to read this article, this is probably one of the best articles that Harry Rinker ever did. And I probably shouldn't say that because obviously I have a biased opinion because I wrote him the email that spawned this particular article. But it's actually titled Rule of 25. It's available on his website and it's column 1328. Okay? I'm going to go into more topics on Harry Rinker and his 30-year rule and other advanced collecting strategies in future videos. Okay? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Right now, we are in a massive revival of people speculating and unsophisticatedly investing in items they think are going to be worth money 10, 20, and 30 years out. Unfortunately, most of the items they're buying are going to be completely, I don't want to say worthless, but not worth as much as they think, okay? There's a lot of items that even I collect, you probably collect, that you do so because you love the item. There is nothing wrong with that, but make no mistake, it is not everything that you collect, nor everything you do collect and want to collect should be an investment, okay? Reserve the term investment for where it applies. One of the things I'm going to say quick to end this video is, in our consumer-driven culture, the term investment is one of the most overused terms I come across, okay? If somebody's buying a car car is a depreciating asset. Okay, I don't care whether you drive a Mercedes, you drive a BMW, you drive a Volkswagen, you drive a Honda. Car is a depreciating asset. We use the term, I'm going to invest in a new car or a pre-owned car. I'm going to invest in a house. Okay, they're not investments if they take money out of your pocket and have no long-term appreciating value. Okay, I'm going to end the video that way. I'm going to revisit this topic in future videos. Thank you for watching. I wish you all a great night. And again, if you like this channel, please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, and I will subscribe, and I will respond in kind. Thank you.